So each year in New Zealand, approximately 57 people die due to guns each year, depending on the time range, of course, and those 57 gun deaths include suicides, accidental deaths, homicides, everything. So that's 57 people who die from guns in New Zealand, roughly. Alright, so also each year in New Zealand, on average, about 107 people die from drowning. So which is the bigger threat? Which is the bigger red alarm that needs to be met with legislation? If we care about human lives and we look to the government to baby us and treat us like children, then drowning is a much larger threat in New Zealand. And it's a pretty big threat in the United States as well, just as a side note. The problem here is that New Zealand's reaction of sweeping gun control in response to this shooting is purely emotional and not logical. They are being blinded by how horrific this one incident was, and it was horrific. I've yet to hear anyone say otherwise. It was a horrible tragedy. But you could take all those deaths that happened during the Christchurch shooting. If you add them to the gun deaths during any year in the past decade in New Zealand, it would still not be as many deaths from guns compared to the deaths that occur from drowning. Drowning is a far greater cause of death in New Zealand. Now, what could they do about drowning deaths? They could ban pools and ban bathtubs. They would be far easier to ban, confiscate, and destroy than guns. Hell, you could see people's pools from a plane. You could have law enforcement patrol popular beaches, lakes, and rivers, and ban everyone from swimming altogether. I mean, they're mandated to have lifeguards at these places, but it doesn't seem to be working. There are still so many deaths from drowning, so something drastic needs to be done. If you did that, I guarantee you that this plight of drowning would nearly disappear. Sounds crazy, but more lives are lost from bodies of water than are lost from guns in New Zealand. So do we care about human lives or not? Well, obviously we do, and yes, I really do think those who advocate for gun control care as well. But if the body count is of utmost importance when it comes to guns, then why not with drowning? Why not have a massive growth in government and cheer them on to ban swimming? It would likely save over 100 lives a year, far more than any gun control would. But what kind of answer do you think you would hear from a New Zealander to the suggestion of banning swimming to save lives? It would likely be that it's their right to go swimming. Although 107 people dying each year from swimming is terrible, the vast majority of people who go swimming do just fine and have no problems. Millions of people go swimming each year in New Zealand and no one dies. The threat is always there, it's ever present, but we will take that risk because we know the overwhelming majority of people are responsible, and those drownings are extraordinarily rare and infrequent, and they don't even come close to representing what happens with most beachgoers. And we want to enjoy a sunny day on a nice beach, and the government has no right to take that away from us, despite the inherent risks involved with having a family day at the beach. Now, I think that is a perfectly reasonable response. So just apply that to guns. And hell, with guns, there is a far greater need to protect an individual right to own a gun. Swimming is just a hobby. Guns are the tools that can help us prevent what happens in nearly every history book you've ever read. Much of history is the story of governments committing murder, genocide, and brutal carnage against individuals. Guns give you at least a fighting chance. They are far more important than swimming pools. A government can't really become tyrannical by outlawing kayaks and water polo. But down the road, I'm not talking about tomorrow, but in the future, if history is any indicator at all, guns will be of utmost importance to the people in preventing government agents from doing what this Christchurch shooter did. But governments do it on a much more massive scale. And again, I'm not talking about tomorrow, I'm talking about some point in the future. Given government's terrible track record in regards to not mass slaughtering people throughout history, it's a terrible mistake to overreact to one horrible incident and give up so freely your right to defend yourself. But that's all for now. Like and subscribe. It's a huge help, my friends, and see you later.